So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the second tabernacle services, where we find then the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Tzayelic lineage, so then we can understand the time of the end. As per Yeshayahu the prophet, then we find ourselves during the time of the 61st chapter. Then the cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries. And then layered with it comes the second chapter of Daniel, and then the 12th chapter of Daniel. And importantly, during the time of the restoration, we find then the 11th chapter of Daniel. The 11th chapter is very unique because the reading of it is mostly the relationship of the kingdom of the north, the Soviet Union, and the kingdom of the south, then Africa, yet birthing. Why do we say then Soviet Union? The reason is because we are expecting this understanding then to end with a layer of understanding later on the same chapter, the 11th, where you find then in the kingdom of the north coming with much equipment. If we read the 11th chapter very precisely, you find then the precise understanding related with much equipment. Why do we understand that Soviet Union? Because during the time of the height of the kingdom of the north, we found in the past the great industry of the kingdom of the north. And you can expect this kingdom then to restore itself. But then, not only this section, we must understand also what it means tabernacling during this time. However, tabernacling then is related with the Messiah. And then tabernacling is most related then with the sons of Ishmael. During this time, we find then many sections of the scripture where then most of the relationship of the base of the statue, where then iron does not mix with the clay, you find then first and second and third kingdoms only. Daniel, however, he explained the kingdom of the east as per a specific chapter related with the dragon and Bel. But then we must understand what those mean. A spiritual understanding, because during the time of Daniel there was not a specific metal related with the kingdom of the east. So Daniel, during the time where he was then understanding this area, there were already instructions given prior of the 11th chapter of the kingdom of the east. It was given already a nation related with the time prior of the statue or the base of the statue. So related with the kingdom of the east another time would make a huge confusion. Rather, the base of the statue where the iron does not mix with the clay, you find then a specific chapter related with the dragon. Interestingly, there is a section of it also related with the serpent. So then you find then the understandings related with the times and the seasons. Dragon, the time of the dragon. So you find in the kingdom of the east understandably and reasonably related with dragon. When after the 2009 event, when the 1,000 years of the city then ended, then we've entered the time of the dragon. We are no longer in the time of the seat, though nations are acting as if they were. But there is an entire new plan of every nation in what they should do as far as the plan is concerned. It's going to take some time yet for the nations to realize they have to leave behind those old traditions of junkies and then understand what the plan is and the plan given. So then we find ourselves after 2009 with the increasing of knowledge. We find then the time of the dragon, the time of precision. This time of precision we find then Daniel the 11th chapter explaining the base of the statue. You find in the 2nd chapter the statue itself and the many types of metals. You find the base of the statue then explained, iron does not mix with the clay. Later you find then, during the time of the mixing, we find ourselves then understanding the lineage of Ibrahim mixed up with the world. Then we find them unmixing themselves and returning to the holy cities. Then we find the layer of the Gentiles during this time. Then we read the 11th chapter stating then the kingdom of the north and the kingdom of the south. Then we find later the kingdom of the north coming with much equipment. So then try to understand how the Soviet Union was during the time of the Cold War. Very reliable equipment. Very famous for its robust equipment. So then how do we relate these areas then with what the Messiah has said related with the time of the end in restoration, where then and the freighters of the earth? How can we then link up with it? There are the steps of formation, and we must understand. Then we find the time of the dragon. We find in the kingdom of the east, and then the system, the Chinese system coming shortly. We understand the south, the kingdom of the south yet birthing the kingdom of the south. And there is a section related with the kingdom of the south where then the kingdom of the south must earn their title and start speaking as such. So let's verify, make sure these then is in line with what the Messiah has said. We find the kingdom of the north, the Soviet Union, involved with the lineage of Christianity. We understand there is a specific spiritual mixing with the instructions. There are sections of it what is mixed. We find the kingdom of the east purely dragon. There is no mixing with it. So it's pure. From the perspective of dragon in its period of time, it is then pure. We don't have to go there. Then we find Daniel the prophet explaining Baal related with Babylon, Babylon's system mixed up then with Christianity and instructions. Those must be delineated. Then we find the south not yet understanding its position as the kingdom of the south. But they are not speaking as kingdom of the south yet. Let's verify what it is. Then we find the kingdom of the south understanding the importance of the entire continent as then providing minerals and resources and raw materials. But then there are many countries in Africa. But from the perspective of tabernacling, they are not countries. They are as a whole, as a kingdom. Kingdom of the south. Where do we understand this? Many years ago then we find Egypt being conquered by the kingdom of Cush. Black pharaohs. We understand they became a kingdom. Not only the northern part of Africa, but the entire continent. So then we draw those understandings for what was, because we are not creating a new understanding. Restoration of what was. So then we find those areas of the past that then was, and we only transfer those to the future. So then the kingdom of the south must start speaking as a unit. For instance, we understand the south side of Africa, they are part of the BRIC. So then the starting of the raw materials already started because they are under the leadership of the Soviets. Let's understand, last year the Soviet Union became then the leaders of the BRIC. Brazil, then Soviet Union itself, and then India, China, and then Brazil obviously was first, and then later became South Africa. So then the South Africa people people must start talking as the kingdom of the south, because they must project the title towards the north, where they're going then to unite themselves as the provider of raw materials. The kingdom of the north, they're going to provide equipment. And then the kingdom of the east is related with production. So then, thus far, we understand then the kingdom of the east coming with the system, and they won't be bothered with other kinds of nations, with other types of religions. They have to go through the kingdom of the north. The kingdom of the north then, because of the great amount of equipment and the know-how to make the equipment, providing what is required for the extraction of minerals and raw materials, most importantly, filtering through the many projects. But these relationship of the east and north, those are already established. Though they may not understand the intricacies of the instructions related with the time of restoration from the tabernacling viewpoint, however, it does not diminish its factors. We find in the kingdom of the south then lacking leadership as far as earning the title. From the south, obviously they were then the last country included in the BRIC: Brazil, Soviet Union, India, China, and then South Africa. South Africa must then start talking as kingdom of the south. They represent the other countries of Africa, Central Africa and Northern Africa. Thus then, South Africa begins then the relationship with the north as the provider of raw materials. And then the east is secluded or protected from these many types of dealings with involvement of religion and trade. The east or China must not be mixed up with religions and trade. They must remain purely trade. So then, with the protection of China, and they must not be disturbed, we find then the kingdom of the north with a lot of work to do. That's why then they're going to become great. If you read the rest of the 11th chapter of Daniel, you'll find the kingdom of the north then prospering very much. But then, this situation must start then with the south, or then the kingdom of the south then earning the title of the kingdom of the south and start talking as such as, for instance, areas of the continent of Africa beyond the south. Speaking of then the Congo, what Congo has to have a relationship with South Africa and Congo, so they can understand what they can provide as raw materials. From the kingdom of the south relates to the kingdom of the north. Then they start understanding the many projects they can earn from the kingdom of the east. So try to understand the flow and where it's going. Because the kingdom of the east, north, and south, they have the say-so during the time of the restoration period related with the Gentile level, except tabernacling. So then we understand the many areas and how they're going to relate with each other. However, what is lacking then is South Africa taking leadership of the entire continent. Start being more vocal. Understanding the relationship, their banking. Obviously, the Bank of China must have a link with South Africa in order to make the transactions then directly and cleanly, very clean, so then they can establish a relationship of reference of the kingdom of the east, then the kingdom of the south, then the kingdom of the north. So then, speaking of the Chinese system coming in the next 36 months, what can we expect? A direct link first, prior to the starting of the Chinese system, making it worldwide prior of this time, We expected then the kingdom of the east having relationship with the kingdom of the north, and then the north and east with the kingdom of the south, lining up their banking per Chinese standards. Because then when they do have this system then set up amongst themselves, then we understand the flow of raw materials, equipment, transportation, then providing the system of the Chinese, then becoming popular throughout the world. So we start then with an engine. They have to come up with an engine of production of raw materials, transportation, and then final product. Then these then sustains the Chinese system shortly the next 36 months. That's why then you find many sections of the BRIC being led by the Kingdom of the North. You find then these areas of the world where they have lots of raw materials. You find in the Soviet Union control then these countries. Then we find lastly then the Kingdom of the South, or South Africa, speaking, or spokesperson speaking for the other countries of the continent of Africa, understanding the title Kingdom of the South. So we can expect absolutely shortly banking of the north, south, and east linked up prior of the coming of the system. And it's already taking place, obviously. So then, understanding this viewpoint, what's lacking then is South Africa being more vocal, being more participant or participative, participating more often and being more vocal of a nation that is taking over then the rest of the continent, but not trying to take over the rest, because they must understand there is a title that is given, but we must understand there are the black pharaohs yet coming. So then, as the South then earns the title and begin to speak as such, then we find then the northern section of it preparing itself for tabernacling. Then we find then black pharaohs then returning of what it was before. That's what made then the kingdom of the south. The black pharaohs of old, those that then conquered Egypt. That's why they had 2 snakes on the heads. So they begin to understand the flow of understanding of each of those areas. So then what is lacking at the moment is the South African people then taking the title and speaking for the rest of the continent. So they can get geared up for what's coming as per the instructions. And then the North has much equipment, does the part of the area of refining plans, making sure the plans are backed up, and then China simply receives without any interference of religion. They only receive plans that must be established and produced. And then the engine goes on. You have then raw materials, you have then selection of these, then you have production, and then the rest of the world obviously would benefit from. So then the understanding is set, and there are other layers that must be evaluated, because then we understand later comes the sons of Ishmael with crude. Very important. And we understand also during this time nations then lining up with the freighters of the earth. So lots of these situations working at the same time in a harmony, and whatsoever we read from the Messiah's completion of the spring feast and what he taught of the end of the world must be lined up with Yirmiyahu the prophet, Ezekiel, sections of Yirmiyahu, Daniel. Those must be lined up then in harmony. Then we are in solid ground. So please stay tuned.